I'm Beth Perrell. Today I'm going to be speaking to Bonnie, the Executive Support Manager for Kids House of Seminole County. And also with me today is Tarrant Sudol. She's from the Florida Yards and Neighborhood Program for the U.S. IFAS program in Seminole County. So welcome to both of you. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what brings these two organizations together. So Bonnie, why don't you begin by telling us what Kids House is?
Thank you, Beth. What Kids House is we are the one-stop for child abuse investigations in Seminole County. We're the regional children's advocacy center for children who have experienced trauma and abuse. And basically what happens here is when a call goes into the abuse hotline or when there is a police officer out in the field who sees anything suspect with regards to a child, that child is brought here. We conduct investigations. We do follow-up with the family. We provide court testimony if necessary, if cases need to be prosecuted. And we follow that child and that family for a long period of time, not only to stop the abuse, but to put in some preventative measures to keep the abuse from happening again.
So overall, your idea is not to further traumatize that child.
Yes, that is the point of a one-stop center. All of our services are under one roof, and our investigations are conducted as a team. So children are only interviewed once, and they don't have to continually relive the trauma they've experienced.
Now, are they only with you one time, or do some have to be there again?
Well, we kind of refer to ourselves as an outpatient clinic. We're the first point of contact to start an investigation of suspected abuse, but we also will follow that child and that family for a long time. Our mental health team will work with the children and provide advanced therapy to help alleviate the symptoms that manifest as a result of trauma and of child abuse. We have an advocates group that works closely with the family to relieve any stressors. Often financial stressors can play into that entire scenario. We have a medical team funded by Florida Hospital that provides on-site medical examinations, which is critical to determine what has actually happened to that child physically and to document their abuse so it can be used in a court of law.
You and I spoke several months ago, maybe even almost a year ago, about this new effort you had to take that waterway that was nearby and to make it into something that could be soothing and therapeutic for the children. Tell us about that. Tell us how it's gone.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing to see this project unfold. We've been working closely with a number of community partners, the Watershed Program, the Seminole County Public Works Department, which is how I met Tarrant, the Seminole Education, Restoration, and Volunteer Serve Program, the County Extension Office, Florida Friendly Landscaping, the Florida Native Plant Society. We've had lots of support, donations from Biospheres Nursery and from Vertex Water Systems for solar aerator systems. And then just community groups that come out. We recently had a Boy Scout troop that came out and did their Eagle Project here.
And this is a place now where children and their families can sort of walk and reflect and eliminate stress?
Basically, yes. We took what was a functioning stormwater pond where it was doing its what it's intended to do was act as filtration for stormwater that funneled into it. And we've basically turned it into a little oasis of tranquility with all kinds of native plants and a walkway around it to create this peaceful, pleasant area that attracts wildlife and is just a soothing walk for our children to stroll around with their therapist.
And it is interesting that there are so many groups that have become a part of helping you create this. What were their various parts? How did all that come together?
I think it was a huge group effort, really. I mean, originally I reached out to the Seminole County Public Works Department, and they have a number of departments underneath them that have played a role. From the SERVE program that actually comes out and removes invasive plants around the water and plants water filtering native plants that are also beautiful in their own way. They flower, they're purple and white and yellow, and they really help with the aesthetics as well as serving as a source of water filtration to keep the water clean. Some people we've reached out to, Vertex Water Systems, which does all kinds of fountains and water purification systems, was responsive to outreach by a biologist from the county and donated a $6,000 solar aerator system for us. So it's just been amazing how people have really loved this project and really wanted to participate in it.
So, Taryn, tell us from your perspective, your involvement, and kind of talk us through that process of bringing this to a point where it is so beautiful.
What started off was just a message on my desk that Bonnie was interested in taking a closer look at our stormwater pond. And first off, anybody showing interest in a stormwater pond, unfortunately, is somewhat rare, but very exciting in our program to get a request like that. Having Bonnie sort of as a leader in this project, seeing how much she cares and seeing the potential of this pond was really motivating for myself, my program. I know all the partners in Public Works that I work with. We were all ready to sort of put what we want to be community-wide initiatives in action. Stormwater ponds, their function is to collect that runoff, and usually that water is pretty impaired with primarily nutrients and some other pollutants. And so the pond collects it, holds it, infiltrates that water. And most of the time, algae really proliferates, so it doesn't look as best as it could. But by putting in landscaping and managing the plants and trying to lower the nutrient levels, you really can turn it into an oasis. You can really improve wildlife habitat. It just takes the first person to start caring to do something about that, to get excited about the plants and the wildlife that you see there. And so my program provides that information, what plants to select, and then Public Works and Really Serve have been really great to get those plants to get action, really get stuff in the ground and growing.
And it must also take time to get it to a point where the wildlife comes in.
Yeah, I mean, we start off with young little plants, and as they grow, they're going to, provide more resources to wildlife. So this is really just going to get better over time as the plants really grow and spread.
Bonnie, I don't know if you remember, but you told me at the time we first spoke about this that you were hoping other people would pick up on this and want to do something similar in those stormwater ponds that were near where they live or work.
Yeah, and I think that has started to become a successful kind of community outreach in and of itself. We had a volunteer that's come out with Serve a few times just to dig out invasive plants around the pond and help with the cleanup of it. And he happened to be a manager of a community association, a big apartment association that had 3 stormwater ponds on their property. And because of the work he did here, he was able to see how to fix it, how to make it beautiful, how to make it a real asset to the property. And so I know he is actually actively working on that at this time.
Taryn, so how does that work if a community or business wants to get started? What do they do?
Yeah, so I think one of the first steps is to simply give our department a call. The Florida Yards and Neighborhood Program is your information source. So we can tell you, based off of the research at the University of Florida, which plants will really thrive in your site, and also, unfortunately, sometimes invasive plants that really dominate and overtake the system, get easily established in these ponds, so we can tell you first how to identify them and then how to go about removing them. So if you want to develop a plan of action, we can definitely help you get situated with that, and then you figure out further steps, how you're going to get these plants, how you're going to perhaps remove other ones, and, maybe change the way you mow and fertilize and take care of your pond currently.
Do you find, Taryn, I don't know if people comment on this, has it been done before, and did people have similar reactions to the calming effects?
Well, what we've been able to do is, again, give people information, and when they are able to plant the plants, they really do seem to be a lot happier with, sort of starting off from these young plants, seeing them develop, and then seeing the wildlife respond in kind, getting new wetland birds visiting, frogs, turtles, and I think just seeing other life forms benefit from something that you did is really rewarding, and it does have that emotional impact. I think that's sort of inevitable when you try to do or, take these projects into action.
In terms of the connection of that stormwater pond and the rivers and everything else, how important is it that that water does get cleaned up in that pond by the grasses and things that you're planting?
It's really important because with our suburban developed life, with all our impervious parking lots and roadways, we've really changed the way our landscape would normally function and how water would normally flow through the system. So because of these changes, we really do get excess nutrients, a lot more runoff flooding into these stormwater ponds that we created. And unfortunately, a good amount of water bodies within these urban settings are impaired. They don't meet the, national standards of a healthy water system. And so because we sort of created this landscape, we need to take extra efforts to correct for the nutrients that end up in there. So I think everybody has their impact on the watershed, and so we all need to, take our corrective measures to restore it.
So Bonnie, talk about that stormwater pond now near Kids' House. Tell me about the wildlife. Tell me about how the area is being used.
Well, it's been amazing. It has really been amazing to watch it turn into a thriving ecosystem. Since we started this project, we've had our resident little egret birds that sat there and actually watched us work. That was kind of fun. But now we see all kinds of animals come down into it. We have wood ducks visiting right now, a whole little platoon of them. I have a resident hawk that flies by screaming every day and likes to come down and look for food. We have owls that I see in the evening when I leave for work, turtles walking along the walkway around the pond, and it's just dragonflies, huge aerial platoons of them all over the place. So it's been just tremendously fun and rewarding, seeing children go out on that path and their eyes light up when they see something from the wild right in our backyard, and they get so excited.
What about the Kids' House staff? Have they been using it as well?
I think our staff goes out there periodically. It kind of depends on the weather. One of the improvements we're trying to make in the back area now, which has been mostly small individual community efforts like the Boy Scout troop that came out, is just enhancing the general beauty of the area. We're trying to get climbing plants that will flower and provide shade. We've installed some hedges that are native plants that will grow quite tall, which will also provide shade, as well as berries and seed pods that will attract more nesting birds, more wildlife. So I see our staff use it occasionally, and my prediction is once it's truly in full bloom and well established, that we will be seeing a lot more people out there.
But a lot of progress for 1 year.
A tremendous amount of progress, and it makes you want to do more and more. It really does. So nice to see small volunteer groups from all over. We have different groups that come through serve, college students, just general people in the community. We had our Boy Scout troop out, and they were supervised by the Native Plant Society, which has been very generous in donating to the project and providing technical support. And to see, 16-year-old boys, get excited about putting plants in the ground and being thrilled because they just saw a hawk land, 20 feet from them. That's really rewarding, and it makes me feel that this is something they're going to come take back with them and maybe apply in their future lives as they move into adulthood. A real caring for the environment.
And I'm sure as these groups volunteer with you, they're also getting information about what these families, what these children go through. And I'm sure there's some awareness there that matters.
Oh, I think it's the initial draw. I mean, people reach out to us originally for volunteer projects because they care about our mission to prevent and to stop child abuse. And then they ask what it is that they can do. And we'll usually give them a variety of different volunteer types of projects that they can do here at Kids House. And what I've found is particularly the younger people, they gravitate right towards working in the back, working on the pond, helping that ecosystem grow and to thrive. So it is pretty thrilling. I think they like the idea of giving back to children that will grow up that are just, their age or a few years younger than them. It's their generation.
We certainly have this message today of the environment and what can happen when you work on the environment, but why don't you take a few moments for the bigger message of how to keep kids safe?
Keeping kids safe is, I think, a real matter of awareness, to always be aware that abuse does not specifically target one income group or one ethnic group. It spans all demographics of people. We have children who are abused from extraordinarily wealthy families and children that are abused in the poorest of families. It's hard to say exactly what will draw people to come to care about our mission. Some have experienced abuse themselves or known abuse within their family group. Some people just love children, and they want to see the next generation grow and thrive.
Is there something we can do to prevent child abuse?
I think to be aware and to be unafraid of contacting authorities, to have your radar up, to not look the other way, to realize that there are some pretty archaic methods of discipline that may have been practiced several generations ago, but now we know from all the studies that have been done and from the fallout and the impact on children that is not an acceptable method of discipline. We find, there's no handbook on how to raise a child. People are not born knowing how to raise a child. They learn how to raise a child based on their own personal experience. And if you come from a family where the discipline was harsh or where neglect was standard, you may not know any better, and you may not have any family or community supports to tell you that you're doing things wrong.
So from what you just said, it sounds like helping parents to get educated in what they can do, giving them that assist so maybe the stress levels don't become out of control.
Yeah, I think just going back to a community model of caring about your neighbor, of paying attention to the children that live next door or down the street. We had a very well-publicized case where a child was severely malnourished, and that child was identified by someone in the medical field who saw that child on public transport and made that phone call. It really is about caring, about being aware and not being afraid to make the call. Better to err on the side of caution than to ignore it.
And who do we call?
If you see anything at all, you'll want to make that referral through the abuse hotline, which is 1-800-96-ABUSE.
And in fact, going back to the idea of the community model, it has been the community that's come together to create this wonderful pond. And that's, again, got to be kind of heartwarming to you to bring those parties together.
It is. It seems like more and more people every day get involved, get excited about the sanctuary we're creating out here for both children and for wildlife. And I do hope that as people keep participating, they become more interested not only in our fight against child abuse, but in making the world a better place for children by enhancing the environment that they live in.
So, Tarrant, let's talk again about if somebody wants to work on a stormwater pond and, do the same kind of things. What happens there? It almost seems like a really big job. Can just a local group do this?
Yeah, first off, it is a big job, but nothing to be afraid of and nothing to be too intimidating to get anybody started with. The reassuring thing is that any little step you do is a step in the right direction. And so if you have sort of a local champion like Bonnie was for Kids House, make the call. Simply call up Florida Yards and Neighborhoods in Seminole County, and we'll talk about your pond and we'll talk about things you can do differently. One of the simplest things that really does have a big impact is if you're mowing or a company is mowing around your pond, make sure their grass clippings shoot away from the pond instead of right towards it. Those grass clippings are just going to decompose and add a lot more nutrients to the pond, and we don't want that. But knowing what plants are there, spending whatever funds you can raise on aquatic plants, all of that can go a long way. You just need to get started. And bringing everybody together is a great way to, know your neighbors, know other community members, and it is fun to get into a pond and pull weeds and plant good plants.
So people can do this at different levels. I mean, Bonnie was talking about the big water filtration that I guess was worth thousands of dollars. I'm not sure that everybody could do that, but just planting the plants can make the difference?
Yeah, you can. It's sort of an uphill battle, and any step you take uphill, you're further along. And so the infiltration system, the aerators that are in the Kids House pond are great, but just even if you are walking around your neighborhood pond, as your evening walk, pulling plants, picking up litter, all of that is helping. And whatever plants you can plant are going to make a difference, especially, a big difference to whatever wildlife or whatever birds decide to nest in the one plant you decide to plant.
Are you two going to take a walk around the pond after we finish this chat?
We are.
Yeah,
actually.
I definitely am.
Do you still, when you take a walk around, notice things that you want to build off of, things you want to add?
Always. I always get one idea after another. I always kind of wait for the next call from a group like the Girl Scouts who contacted us recently. So when they say, what do you need, I can tell them, well, this would be nice.
Yeah, I think once you really open up your eyes to a pond or to a garden, you really take notice of the plants there and the wildlife that visit or live there, and then the horizons open up for you, and you get excited about what's new and what's doing well, and you see a lot more potential.
It's funny, I started, since I've worked on this pond, I've also kind of applied what I've learned here to my home life. And just as an example, I noticed last week that I left my coffee cup on my little porch table, which is an outdoor porch, and I came back to it and it was just swarming with bees. And I thought, why do I have all these bees on my coffee cup? And then I realized that our whole neighborhood had been mowed down to the ground, probably in preparation for just winter and visitors coming for the holidays. And then it made me realize that they were hungry. And I noticed that, too, here on the Kids House property, that we'll have times when we mow down certain areas and all of a sudden I see butterflies all clinging to exactly the same plant, just looking for some sustenance. So I think once your eyes open, you just start realizing that nobody lives in a vacuum, that we can do our part, even if it's just planting a little stand of plants that will help support wildlife and contributing some beauty to the world so that our children can look at that and feel some wonder.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful way for us to conclude this chat. Anything else you would want to add, though?
We just really appreciate the community's support, and we hope to receive more support in the future, not just for our work environmentally out on the pond and on our property, but just to support Kids House and its mission to prevent and end child abuse. And I do hope that if you do see anything this holiday season, which stressors seem to be very high during the holiday seasons, that people go ahead and they call 1-800-96-ABUSE, and they go ahead and they make that call and let that child be brought here to Kids House. Let us see what's happening with that child and see if we can make a child's life any better.
Thanks to both of you.